I woke up on my 28th birthday to the sound of Ryan's voice on the phone in the next room, and I knew, with the cold certainty of someone who'd lived this exact moment before, that he was talking to her. Baby, I know, just give me 2 more months. Once the deal closes, I'll have enough to leave her. We can finally be together. The words were different this time. Last time I'd heard, I love you, and she's so stupid she has no idea. But the sentiment was the same. The betrayal was the same. I stared at the ceiling of our bedroom, his bedroom really, since I'd been the one paying the mortgage for 3 years, and felt nothing. No tears, no shock, just a distant, clinical rage that burned cold instead of hot. Because I'd already cried those tears. I'd already felt that shock. I'd already lived through the devastation of discovering that my husband of 5 years had been planning to leave me the moment his business took off, that he'd been sleeping with his business partner, Melissa, for 2 years, that every loan I'd co-signed, every credit card I'd opened in my name for his opportunities, every sacrifice I'd made had been part of his exit strategy, leaving me with the debt while he started fresh with her. In my first life, I'd found out too late. 6 months from now, to be exact. He'd drained our accounts, maxed out the cards, and disappeared. I'd spent the next decade crawling out of financial ruin, my credit destroyed, my name mud. I'd died at 39 in a car accident, bitter and broken, wondering where I'd gone wrong. Then I'd woken up here. 28th birthday, 5 months before D-Day. Ryan walked back into the bedroom, his phone already pocketed, his smile already fixed. Morning, birthday girl. I made coffee. Thanks, I said, sitting up. I looked at him, really looked at him. Sandy hair artfully tousled, blue eyes that crinkled when he smiled, the dimple in his left cheek that had made me fall in love with him. At 22, he was handsome, charming, and a complete sociopath. So I was thinking we could do something special tonight, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. Maybe that Italian place you like? The Italian place that cost $300 for two and would go on my credit card. Of course. Actually, I said, I was thinking we could just stay in. I'm exhausted. His smile tightened. Just a fraction. Come on, babe. It's your birthday. Let me spoil you. With my own money. But I smiled back. Okay, that sounds nice. He kissed my forehead, a gesture that had once made me feel cherished and now made my skin crawl, and headed for the shower. The moment I heard the water running, I grabbed my phone. I had 5 months. 5 months to prepare, to plan, to make sure that when Ryan tried to destroy me this time, he'd destroy himself instead. First, I needed to understand exactly what he was planning. In my previous life, I'd been blindsided, not this time. The thing about living your life twice is that you remember things, important things, like passwords. Ryan used the same 4 passwords for everything, rotated based on which girlfriend he'd had when he created the account. Since we'd been together for 7 years total, 2 dating, 5 married, most of his current passwords were variations of my name or our anniversary. Cute. Also stupid. While he was at work that day, at the office he shared with Melissa, though I knew he'd told me it was a solo workspace, I logged into every account he had. His email was a goldmine. He'd been planning this for 8 months longer than I'd realized. The affair with Melissa had started 3 years ago, not 2. They'd been plotting his exit for almost as long. But the timeline had accelerated recently because of one thing, the Riverside development deal. Ryan was a commercial real estate broker. In my first life, the Riverside deal had been his big break, a massive mixed-use development that would have earned him a 7-figure commission. He'd needed capital to buy into the project as a partner, not just a broker. That's where I'd come in. My credit score was 815, perfect payment history, low utilization, excellent length of credit. His was 620, missed payments, collection accounts, maxed cards from failed opportunities before me. In my first life, he'd convinced me to co-sign a $500,000 business loan. Baby, this is our future. When this closes, we'll be set for life. We can start a family, buy that house you want, travel the world. I'd believed him. I'd signed on it. And when the deal fell through, because of course it fell through, it was always going to fall through, he defaulted on the loan and disappeared. I'd been left holding a debt I couldn't pay, My credit destroyed, my savings gone. But here's what I hadn't known, what I'd only discovered now by reading through his emails. The deal hadn't fallen through. Ryan had made it fall through. He'd sabotaged it, deliberately letting his partner buy him out for pennies on the dollar, and then planned to use that cash as seed money for his real venture with Melissa, a competing development on the other side of town. He'd destroyed my life as a business strategy. I sat back in my desk chair, staring at the email chain between Ryan and Melissa. Once we tank Riverside, I can get out of the partnership for $50K. Combined with what we've saved, that's enough to option the West Side property. And the beauty is, Emma's loan default will tie up the bank in litigation for months. By the time they realize what happened, we'll be long gone. Melissa's response, "You're brilliant, baby." She really has no idea, does she? None. She thinks I'm building our future. God, she's pathetic. I closed the laptop carefully, precisely, like I was handling explosives. Then I smiled. "Emma, I need to talk to you about something." It was 3 days later. We were having dinner, takeout Chinese that I'd paid for, and Ryan had that serious, sincere expression he used when he wanted something big. "What's up?" I asked, twirling lo mein around my fork. "It's about Riverside." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Baby, I have an incredible opportunity, but I need your help." My help? The partnership buy-in. It's $500,000. If I can come up with that, I'll be a full partner, not just the broker. My commission alone would be over $1 million, plus equity in the ongoing revenue. This is life-changing money, Em. Our life-changing money. I let my eyes widen, let hope creep into my expression. $1 million? At minimum, probably closer to $2 million within the first year. He squeezed my hand. But here's the thing, I need to move fast. The partnership window closes in 2 weeks. And my credit, you know it's not great, but yours is perfect. You want me to take out a loan? I want us to take out a loan for our future. He pulled out papers. He'd already prepared them, already talked to the bank. I've done all the legwork. With your credit score, we're pre-approved. We just need your signature. I looked down at the loan documents. $500,000. 15-year term, secured by our house. The house I'd paid the down payment on. The house I'd been covering the mortgage on while Ryan invested in his career. In my first life, I'd signed. I'd believed every word. I'd thought we were partners. "Ryan," I said slowly, "this is a lot of money." I know it is, but baby, think about what it means. No more struggling, no more scraping by. We can start a family, buy that house in the suburbs you've always wanted. You could even quit your job if you wanted to. I'd never wanted to quit my job. I loved my job. But Ryan had always resented that I out-earned him, that I was the stable one, that I had the better career. Of course, he'd frame financial independence as something I'd want to give up. "What if something goes wrong?" I asked. "Nothing will go wrong. I've been working on this deal for 2 years. It's solid. The developers are solid. This is the safest bet I've ever made." He looked into my eyes, his expression earnest and loving and completely fabricated. "Do you trust me?" That was his favorite manipulation. Making it about trust. Making my hesitation about the relationship, not the risk. In my first life, I'd said yes. I'd signed. I'd destroyed myself. "Of course I trust you," I said. His shoulders relaxed. "So you'll do it?" I pulled my hand back gently. "Can I think about it for a few days? It's a big decision." His jaw tightened. "Emma, the window closes in 2 weeks. We need to move now." "I know, I want to read through everything carefully. Make sure I understand it all. Can you give me until this weekend?" I watched him calculate. Push too hard and I might get suspicious. Back off and he'd seem understanding, trustworthy. "Of course," he said finally. "Take your time. I want you to feel comfortable with this." Then he smiled, and I smiled back, and we finished our dinner like a normal couple planning a normal future. but I was already planning something very different. The first call I made was to my mother. In my first life, I hadn't told her about the loan until after everything fell apart. She'd been furious, not at Ryan, but at me for being so stupid. How could you sign away your future for a man? I raised you better than this. We'd never fully repaired that relationship before I died. This time, I called her before I signed anything. Mom, I need advice. What's wrong? Her voice immediately sharpened with concern. Ryan wants me to co-sign a business loan. $500,000. Silence, then. Absolutely not. He says it's for a real estate partnership, that it's a sure thing. Emma Marie, there is no such thing as a sure thing in business. And you never, ever tie your financial future to a man. I don't care if he's your husband. I don't care if he promises you the moon. You keep your credit and your assets separate. This was why I'd called her. My mother was a divorce attorney. She'd spent 30 years watching women financially eviscerated by men they trusted. But we're married. Isn't it supposed to be a partnership? Marriage is a partnership, but that doesn't mean you give him the keys to your financial security. What if he dies? What if the business fails? What if, and I know you don't want to hear this, what if he's not who you think he is? I let that sit. Then, you think I shouldn't do it. I think you should protect yourself. At minimum, if you're going to sign, you need a separate contract guaranteeing your interest in the business. You need collateral. You need ironclad legal protection. And even then, I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, I said. Thank you. Emma, her voice softened. I know you love him, but love doesn't pay the bills when things go wrong. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise. I hung up and I felt something I hadn't felt in my first life. Relief that my mother and I were still okay. That this time I could make choices that wouldn't destroy our relationship. But I wasn't done making calls. The second call was to my best friend Jessica. In my first life, I'd lost Jessica too. When I'd gone bankrupt, when I'd been drowning in debt and depression, she'd tried to help. She'd offered me money, offered me her couch, offered me everything, but I'd been too proud, too ashamed. I'd pushed her away. And eventually, she'd stopped trying. I died alone because I'd isolated everyone who loved me, not this time. Jess, can you meet me for coffee? I need to talk. We met at our usual place, a little cafe near her office. Jessica was a financial analyst at a major firm, brilliant with money, terrible with men, my favorite person in the world. I told her everything, the loan, Ryan's pressure, my hesitation. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already lived this, already knew how it ended. Some things were too crazy to share, even with your best friend. Let me see the documents, she said. I'd brought copies. She read through them with the focused intensity she usually reserved for earnings reports, her dark eyes scanning every line. Finally, she looked up. Emma, this is a terrible idea. Why? Because you're taking on all the risk for none of the reward. The loan is in your name. If Ryan defaults, you're liable. But the partnership, according to this, is in his name only. You're not even listed as a co-owner. If the deal succeeds, you get nothing except being married to a rich guy. If it fails, you get bankruptcy. He says we're married, so it's our money anyway. Legally, that's not how business partnerships work. If he's the sole owner and the business makes money, that's his asset. But if you're the sole signer on the loan and it goes bad, that's your debt. She pushed the papers back across the table. Don't do this. But what if he's right? What if it really is a good opportunity? Then let him find another way to fund it. Let him get investors. Let him use his own credit. Why does it have to be you taking the risk? Because he's planning to destroy me and disappear, I thought. Because he needs a fall guy. Because I'm the stupid, trusting wife he can use and discard. Out loud, I said, I don't know. Jessica reached across and grabbed my hand. Emma, you're one of the smartest people I know. You have a great job, great credit, a great life. Don't gamble it on something this risky, please. I squeezed her hand back. Okay, I won't. But I was lying because I wasn't going to co-sign the loan to help Ryan. I was going to co-sign the loan to destroy him. The weekend came. Ryan had been anxious all week, asking if I'd made a decision, reminding me about the deadline, painting pictures of our glorious future. On Saturday morning over breakfast, I said, I'll do it. His face lit up. Really? Really, I trust you and I believe in you. Let's build our future together. He came around the table and hugged me, and I let him, even though his touch made my skin feel dirty. You won't regret this, he said. I promise. I know, I lied. We went to the bank on Monday. Ryan had everything prepared. The loan officer smiled at us like we were the perfect young couple making smart financial decisions. I signed where I was told to sign, provided my employment information, my credit history, my social security number. The loan was approved in 48 hours, $500,000 deposited into Ryan's business account. He took me to dinner that night to celebrate, the expensive Italian place. We drank champagne. He toasted to our future. This is just the beginning, Em. In a year, we'll be in that house you've always wanted. Maybe we'll start trying for a baby. Maybe we'll take that trip to Italy you've been talking about. All lies. In a year, he'd planned to be living with Melissa in a penthouse downtown funded by my financial ruin. But I smiled and clinked my glass against his. To our future. Then I went home and started phase 2. The thing about credit reports is that they're incredibly detailed. Every account, every payment, every inquiry, and more importantly, every authorized user. When you co-sign a loan, you're not just vouching for someone else's credit. You're tying your financial identity to theirs. Their debt becomes your debt. Their default becomes your default. But here's what most people don't know. You can freeze your credit. A credit freeze prevents anyone from accessing your credit report without your explicit permission. No new accounts can be opened. No new loans can be issued. Any existing accounts tied to your credit become problematic if they need to be modified or refinanced. In my first life, I'd never known about credit freezes. I'd only learned about them after my bankruptcy, when the financial counselor had recommended it to prevent identity theft. This time, I knew about them before I needed them. I waited 2 weeks. Let Ryan get comfortable. Let him think everything was going according to plan. Then I started watching his emails again. The Riverside deal was progressing. Ryan had bought into the partnership. He was working with the developers, negotiating contracts, acting like a legitimate businessman. But his emails with Melissa told a different story. Phase 1 complete. Emma signed everything. The money's in the account. When are you going to sabotage the deal? Give it another month. Let it look real. Then I'll start causing problems. Miss some deadlines, piss off the developers. By the time they buy me out, Emma will be so stressed about the loan that she won't even notice I'm withdrawing from her life. And then we're free. And then we're free. I screenshotted everything, saved it in 3 different cloud accounts, printed hard copies, and stored them in a safe deposit box at a bank Ryan didn't know about. Then I waited for him to make his first move. It happened on a Tuesday. Ryan came home agitated, pacing the living room. We have a problem with Riverside. I looked up from my laptop. What kind of problem? The developers are being difficult. They want to change the terms of the partnership. Either I put in another $200,000 or they're buying me out. Right on schedule. This was the sabotage Melissa had asked about. Ryan was creating the problem himself, making it look like bad luck instead of betrayal. Another $200,000? Ryan, we don't have that. I know. He ran his hands through his hair, the picture of stressed entrepreneurship. But if I don't come up with it, they'll buy me out for pennies. We'll lose everything. How much would the buyout be? $75,000. Maybe. So he'd put in $500,000 and he'd get back $75,000. A loss of $425,000. My debt, my destroyed, credit, my problem. Except this time, I was ready. What do you want to do? I asked. I don't know, maybe we could take out another loan? Use the house as collateral? Ryan, we already have a $500,000 loan. And the mortgage. We can't take on more debt. Then what? I just let them buy me out, let all your money disappear? My money. Finally, some honesty. Let me think about it, I said. Maybe there's a solution. That night, while Ryan slept, I went into the bathroom with my phone and made the call. Credit freeze, all 3 bureaus, effective immediately. It took 15 minutes total. When I was done, my credit was locked down, impenetrable, inaccessible, and any loan tied to my credit, like Ryan's $500,000 business loan, had just become very, very complicated. The phone call started 3 days later. Ryan's phone buzzing constantly. The bank, the partnership, the developers. I listened to him take the calls in the next room, his voice rising with each one. What do you mean there's a freeze on the credit? No, I didn't authorize that. The loan is already dispersed. How can there be a problem? He came into the kitchen where I was making coffee, his face pale. Did you freeze your credit? I turned, careful to look confused. What? No, why would I do that? The bank says there's a freeze on your credit report. They can't verify the loan status. The partnership is freaking out because they think the funding is going to fall through. I don't understand. I didn't freeze anything. Well, someone did. Call them. Fix it now. I pulled out my phone and made a show of calling the credit bureau. Waited on hold. Spoke to a representative. Yes, I'm calling about a credit freeze on my account. Uh-huh. When was it put in place? 3 days ago. And who authorized it? I did? Oh. Oh, right. I remember now. I read an article about identity theft, and I thought it would be safer to freeze my credit. I completely forgot. Ryan was staring at me, his jaw clenched. Can you unfreeze it? Oh, I see. I need to submit a request in writing, and it takes 7-10 business days to process. No, there's no way to expedite it. Okay, thank you. I hung up, looked at Ryan. I'm so sorry, I completely forgot I did that, but they said it'll be unfrozen in 7-10 days. 7 to 10 days? Emma, the partnership needs verification now. If they can't verify the loan, they're going to pull my buy-in. I'll be out of the deal completely. Can't you just show them the bank statements? Prove the money is there? It's not about the money being there, it's about the source of the funding being verifiable. If your credit is frozen, they can't verify the loan, and if they can't verify the loan, they can't verify that the funding is legitimate. This was better than I'd hoped. I'd thought freezing my credit would just make things difficult. I hadn't realized it would make him look like a fraud, Uzgus. I'm sorry, said again. I'll call them back. I'll see if there's anything I can do. Do it now, Emma. This is our entire future. I called again, got the same answer. 7 to 10 business days, no exceptions. Ryan grabbed his keys. I have to go to the office, try to do damage control. He left, tires squealing out of the driveway. I poured my coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and smiled. The next week was chaos. Ryan was on the phone constantly, arguing with the bank, arguing with the partnership, arguing with the developers. The credit freeze had triggered a cascade of verification issues. The loan was technically in good standing, but the bank couldn't access my credit report to confirm ongoing eligibility. The partnership couldn't verify the source of Ryan's buy-in funds. The developers were threatening to pull out entirely, and because real estate deals are built on trust and verification, the whole thing was collapsing like a house of cards. They're saying I committed fraud, Ryan said on day 5, his face haggard. They think I forged your signature or used your identity illegally because your credit is frozen and they can't verify you authorized the loan. But I did authorize it. We both signed at the bank. I know that. You know that. But they can't verify it, so they're assuming the worst. He grabbed my shoulders. Emma, you have to unfreeze your credit. Today. Call them and tell them it's an emergency. I did. They said 7-10 business days. There's no emergency override. There has to be. This is our entire life savings on the line. It's your partnership. My credit freeze shouldn't affect. It affects everything, he was shouting now. Don't you get it? If they pull the deal, I'm out $500,000. We're ruined. You're ruined because the loan is in your name. There it was. The truth he'd been hiding. The loan was in my name. I was the one liable. Except I wasn't. Not anymore. Because here's the thing about co-signed loans and credit. Freezes. When the primary borrower is unable to verify their creditworthiness and when the source of their funding becomes questionable, the loan can be called in, the full amount, immediately. And that's exactly what happened on day 8. The letter came from the bank. Formal, legal, devastating. Dear Ms. Emma Hartwell, due to irregularities in verification and concerns about the legitimacy of loan number 847392, we are exercising our right under Section 12.4 of your loan agreement to call in the full balance of $500,000 due within 30 days. Failure to repay will result in default proceedings and seizure of collateral, including but not limited to property at 442 Maple Street. Ryan read the letter 3 times. Then he looked at me. You did this on purpose. What? No, I just froze my credit because... Bullshit. He threw the letter on the table. You've been sabotaging me this entire time. You never wanted me to succeed. You've always been jealous that I might actually make something of myself instead of being stuck in your boring corporate job forever. The projection was incredible. The gaslighting was masterful. If I hadn't known better, I might have actually felt guilty. Ryan, that's not fair. I've supported you. Supported me. You destroyed me. That loan was my one chance and you ruined it with your paranoid identity theft bullshit. I was just trying to protect myself. From what? From your own husband? Jesus Christ, Emma, do you trust me at all? Of course I trust you. Then unfreeze your goddamn credit and fix this mess. I paused. Let him think I was considering it. Then I said, okay, I'll unfreeze it tomorrow. Some of the tension left his shoulders. Thank you, finally. He grabbed his jacket. I'm going to the office. I need to call the bank and let them know we're fixing this. He left, and I heard him on the phone as he walked to his car, not to the bank, to Melissa. It's falling apart. She froze her credit, and now the whole deal is collapsing. I know. We need to move to Plan B. Plan B? I wondered what that was. I didn't have to wonder for long. That night, Ryan came home with flowers and apologies. I'm sorry I yelled. I've been under so much stress and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. The flowers were nice, expensive, purchased with my credit card probably. It's okay, I said. I know this has been hard on you. Let's just fix this, okay? Unfreeze your credit tomorrow. I'll call the bank and we'll get everything sorted out. We can still save the deal. Okay. We had dinner, watched TV, went to bed. Normal couple doing normal things. At 2 a.m., I woke up to Ryan's phone buzzing on the nightstand. He was asleep, snoring lightly. I picked it up. Melissa's name on the screen. I didn't unlock it. I didn't have his current password for the phone, only his emails and accounts. But I could see the preview of the text. Did she agree to unfreeze? We need to move. Fast. Once the money's transferred to the offshore account, we can... The message cut off. Offshore account. Of course, Plan B wasn't saving the deal. Plan B was stealing the money before the bank could claw it back. I put the phone back on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. In my first life, this was where I'd lost. Ryan would have drained the accounts, disappeared with Melissa, left me with the defaulted loan and no way to pay it. But in this life, I had something he didn't expect. I had time. And I had knowledge. And I had a plan. The next morning, I told Ryan I'd unfrozen my credit. I hadn't, but I called the credit bureau on speakerphone, went through the motions of requesting an unfreeze, and acted like it was done. They said it'll take 24 hours to process, I told him. By tomorrow morning, everything should be back to normal. Thank God. He kissed my forehead. I knew you'd come through. I'm going to call the bank now, let them know it's handled. But left for work. Actually, Melissa's apartment, based on the GPS tracker I'd put on his car 2 weeks ago. And I went to see a lawyer, not my mother. She'd asked too many questions, and I wasn't ready to tell her everything yet. Instead, I went to see Marcus Webb, a criminal attorney who specialized in financial fraud. I'd found him through Jessica, who'd used his firm for a case at her company. "Ms. Hartwell," he said, gesturing to a chair in his sleek downtown office. "Jessica said you needed help with a delicate matter. My husband is planning to commit fraud. I want to know what my legal options are." His eyebrows rose. "That's quite an accusation." "I have proof." I pulled out my phone and showed him the emails. The text messages, the documentation of Ryan's plan to sabotage the Riverside deal and steal the loan money. Marcus read through everything carefully. Then he sat back. "This is extensive. How did you get access to his private communications?" "He gave me his passwords years ago. I never stopped using them." "That's potentially illegal depending on your jurisdiction, but given that you're married, it's a gray area." He tapped his fingers on his desk. "What do you want to happen here?" "I want him arrested. I want him charged with fraud. And I want to make sure I'm not liable for the loan he took out in my name." "The last part is tricky. You co-signed the loan willingly. Even if you can prove he intended to defraud you, you're still legally responsible for the debt unless we can void the contract based on fraud in the inducement." "What does that mean?" "It means we'd have to prove that he tricked you into signing by lying about material facts. From these emails, it's clear he lied about his intentions. But proving that in court is difficult." "What if I had more evidence? What if I could show a pattern of financial abuse and manipulation?" Marcus leaned forward. "What kind of evidence?" I pulled out the second folder, bank statements showing Ryan draining joint accounts over the past 3 years, credit card statements showing charges I'd never made, transfer records showing money moving from our savings to accounts I didn't recognize. "I've been documenting everything since I found out about the affair," I lied. Actually, I'd been documenting everything since I'd been reborn, but that was harder to explain. Marcus's expression shifted from interested to concerned. "Ms. Hartwell, this isn't just fraud. This is financial abuse. Potentially identity theft. If we bring this to the DA, your husband could be looking at serious prison time." "Good. Are you sure? Once we start this process, there's no going back. Your marriage will be over. This will be public, messy." I thought about my first life. The bankruptcy, the shame, the decade of poverty and struggling, the isolation, the bitter, lonely death. "I'm sure." "All right, then." Marcus pulled out a legal pad. Let's build a case." It took 3 days to compile everything. Marcus worked with a forensic accountant to trace every dollar Ryan had stolen, every fraudulent charge, every instance of financial manipulation. The total was staggering, $247,000 over 3 years, more than I'd even realized in my first life, because I'd been too broken to do a full accounting. "He's been bleeding you dry," Marcus said. "Using your credit cards for his business expenses, transferring your savings to investment accounts in his name only, even taking out a personal loan using your identity without your knowledge." "Can we get the loan voided?" "Possibly. If we can prove fraud in the inducement, the bank may agree to void the contract rather than face litigation. But you'll need to act fast. Once Ryan realizes you're onto him, he'll try to move the money." "He already is." I showed him the text from Melissa about the offshore account. Marcus swore under his breath. "Okay, we need to move now. I'm going to call the DA and the FBI." "The FBI?" "Wire fraud. If he's moving money offshore, that's federal. They'll freeze his accounts, seize his assets, and arrest him before he can flee." "How long will that take?" "If they move fast, 24 hours. I felt something loosen in my chest. After months of planning, of pretending, of playing the perfect, trusting wife, it was almost over. "Do it." Ryan came home that evening in high spirits. The bank called. Your credit is showing as unfrozen. They're processing the verification now. By Monday, everything should be cleared up. Monday, 3 days away. That was when he'd planned to transfer the money and disappear. That's great, I said. We should celebrate. He pulled out a bottle of expensive wine, purchased with my credit card naturally. To getting our lives back on track. We drank, we talked. He told me about the Riverside deal, how it was going to close soon, how we'd be rich. All lies. But I smiled and nodded and played along. At 11 p.m., while Ryan was in the shower, my phone buzzed. Marcus, FBI is moving tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., be ready. Me, ready for what? Marcus, they'll need you to give a statement, and they'll be arresting Ryan at your house. You might want to stay somewhere else tonight. I looked toward the bathroom where I could hear the shower running and Ryan singing off key. No, I wanted to be there. I wanted to see his face when he realized what was happening. Me, I'll be here. The FBI arrived at 6:04 a.m. I was already awake, dressed, drinking coffee in the kitchen. Ryan was still asleep upstairs, having stayed up late, working, actually coordinating with Melissa about the money transfer. The doorbell rang. I answered it. 3 agents in windbreakers, federal badges, serious expressions. Emma Hartwell? Yes. We have a warrant for the arrest of Ryan Hartwell. Is he here? Upstairs, bedroom on the right. They moved past me and I followed at a distance, watched as they pounded on the bedroom door. Ryan Hartwell! FBI, open the door! Scrambling inside. Then the door opened. Ryan in pajama pants and a t-shirt, his hair messed from sleep, his face confused. What's going on? Ryan Hartwell, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit bank fraud. You have the right to remain silent. I watched from the hallway as they cuffed him, watched as his confusion turned to shock, then to panic. His eyes found mine. Emma, what is this? I didn't say anything, just watched as they read him his Miranda rights, as they led him downstairs, as they put him in the back of their car. One of the agents stayed behind to talk to me. Ms. Hartwell, we'll need you to come to the field office to give a statement. Your attorney can accompany you. Of course. I should also inform you that we've frozen all accounts associated with Mr. Hartwell, including joint accounts. You'll need to work with the bank to separate your finances. I understand. The agent paused. You did the right thing. I know it couldn't have been easy. Actually, it had been incredibly easy, but I just nodded. The next few days were a blur of statements and depositions and meetings. The FBI had seized everything. Ryan's accounts, Melissa's accounts, the offshore account that hadn't been funded yet. They'd arrested Melissa too, charged her as a co-conspirator. The Riverside partnership was in shambles, the developers threatening lawsuits. But that wasn't my problem anymore, because Marcus had been right. With the FBI's evidence, the bank agreed to void the loan. Fraud in the inducement. The contract was nullified, the debt erased from my credit report. I wasn't liable for any of it. My credit score actually went up after everything was cleared because the inquiry and the brief loan history had been removed entirely. Ryan, on the other hand, was facing 15 years in federal prison. His bail hearing was a disaster. The prosecutor argued flight risk, offshore account, documented plans to flee, history of financial fraud. Bail was denied. I didn't go to the hearing, but Jessica did, and she called me after. He looked terrible, like he couldn't believe this was happening. Good. Are you okay? Was I okay? I'd just destroyed my husband's life, had him arrested, seized his assets, and voided $500,000 in debt. I should have felt guilty, conflicted, something. Instead, I felt free. I'm okay, I said. Better than okay. Good. You want to come over? I'm making dinner. I'd love that. I hung up and I realized I was smiling. Really smiling. For the first time in how long? Years in my first life? Months in this one. But there was still one more thing I needed to do. I visited Ryan in jail 3 weeks later. He looked awful. Orange jumpsuit, unshaved, dark circles under his eyes. They brought him to the visiting room in handcuffs, sat him across from me with a plexiglass barrier between us. He picked up the phone. I picked up mine. Why? His voice was hoarse. Why did you do this? I could have played dumb, could have pretended I didn't know what he was talking about. Instead, I said, because you were going to do it to me. His face went pale. What? The offshore account. The plan to sabotage Riverside and steal the loan money. Leaving me with the debt while you ran off with Melissa. I know everything, Ryan. I've known for months. How did I know? Does it matter? I leaned forward. That you thought I was stupid. You thought I'd never figure it out. You thought you could use me and throw me away and I'd just, what, roll over and take it? Emma, don't lie to me anymore. I've read your emails. I've seen your texts. I know exactly who you are and what you plan to do. He stared at me, and I watched the calculation happen in his eyes. The realization that his lies wouldn't work anymore, that I was done being his victim. You ruined my life, he said finally. No, I stopped you from ruining mine. I'm going to prison. 15 years. My career is over. My reputation is destroyed. And I'm going home to a house I own, with credit that's perfect, and a life that's entirely mine. So I guess we both got what we deserved. I stood up. Wait, Emma, please. We can fix this. I'll plead guilty. I'll take responsibility. Just please don't testify against me, please. I looked at him. This man I'd loved. This man I'd married. This man who'd destroyed me once and had been planning to destroy me again. I'll see you in court, I said. Then I hung up the phone and walked away. The trial took 6 months. Ryan's lawyer tried to argue that I'd entrapped him, that I'd deliberately frozen my credit to sabotage the deal, that I was the real villain. But the evidence was overwhelming. The emails, the texts, the forensic accounting showing years of financial abuse, the offshore account, Melissa's testimony when she flipped on him to get a reduced sentence. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Sentencing was another month later. The judge was not sympathetic. Mr. Hartwell, you systematically abused your wife's trust and finances for years. You committed identity theft, bank fraud, and wire fraud. You showed no remorse and attempted to flee the country with stolen funds. This court sentences you to the maximum, 15 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You are also ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $247,000 to Ms. Hartwell. Ryan's face crumbled. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder, but he just stared straight ahead, blank and broken. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no pity, just closure. It was over. 1 year later, I was sitting in my backyard, the backyard of the house that was now entirely mine, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. The divorce had been finalized. I'd gotten the house, the car, everything. Ryan had nothing to give, nothing to fight with. His parents had tried to convince me to drop the restitution claim, but I'd held firm. He owed me $247,000, and I'd get every penny, even if it took decades. My credit score was 827, higher than it had ever been. I'd gotten a promotion at work. Senior director, corner office, 6-figure salary. Jessica was inside, making breakfast. She'd moved in 6 months ago after her own bad breakup. We'd decided to be roommates, and it was the best decision I'd made in either life. My mother called me every week. We'd gotten close again, working through the Ryan situation together. She'd been my rock during the trial. I had my life back. Better than back, I had a life I'd built myself, protected myself, freed myself to enjoy. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Former real estate broker Ryan Hartwell denied parole in federal fraud case. He'd tried for early release, claimed rehabilitation. The parole denies. Board had denied it unanimously. 14 years to go. I deleted the notification and went inside, where Jessica was plating French toast and bacon. Morning, she said. Coffee's fresh? You're the best. I know, she grinned. What do you want to do today? We could hit that new hiking trail, or just stay in and watch bad movies. Bad movies, I decided. I've had enough adventure for 1 lifetime. 2 lifetimes, actually, but I didn't say that. I just sat down with my best friend in my kitchen in my house and ate breakfast and felt, for the first time in as long as I could remember, completely and utterly at peace. Years passed. My career flourished. I made senior VP at 32, the youngest in company history. Jessica started her own consulting firm, and I invested in it. My money, my choice, my risk. It paid off beautifully. I dated occasionally, nothing serious. I wasn't ready to trust someone that completely again, and I was okay with that. My life was full, without a partner. I had friends, family, work I loved, hobbies I'd never had time for when I was managing Ryan's chaos. On my 35th birthday, I got a letter from Ryan. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. Dear Emma, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you probably hate me, but I'm writing this because my therapist said I need to make amends, and you're at the top of that list. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't begin to cover what I did, but it's the truth. I was selfish and cruel, and I convinced myself that I deserved more than what we had. I thought I was smarter than everyone, that I could take what I wanted without consequences. I was wrong. Prison has given me a lot of time to think about who I was and who I want to be. I've been working through my issues, the narcissism, the entitlement, the complete lack of empathy. I'm not expecting you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I did to you, and I'm sorry. I hope you're happy. I hope you found someone who treats you the way you deserve to be treated. I hope you have everything you ever wanted. I'll be in here for another 8 years. When I get out, I'll pay you back every penny of the restitution. It's the least I can do. I'm sorry, Emma, for everything. Ryan. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Maybe he meant it. Maybe he didn't. It didn't really matter anymore, because I'd stopped defining my life by what he'd done to me. I'd stopped being the woman he'd victimized. I was just me. Emma. Successful, happy, free. I never wrote back. When I died the second time, it was at 83. Peacefully, in my sleep, in the beautiful house I'd turned into a home. Jessica had passed 2 years earlier, and I missed her every day, but I'd been surrounded by people I loved until the end. My nieces and nephews, colleagues who'd become friends, a life rich with connection and meaning. I closed my eyes in that life, and I wondered if I'd wake up again in a third, if I'd get another chance, another do-over, but I didn't, and that was okay. Because I'd already used my second chance to build something beautiful, I'd used it to save myself, and in the end, that was the best revenge of all.